The desperate cry. The forest was quiet, too quiet for a living world. Only the sound of the wind moving through the tall black trees could be heard. A human traveler walked carefully, each step heavy on the damp ground. He was not lost, but he was far from home, far from any safe place. His eyes kept scanning the shadows, his hand near the small weapon on his belt. He had heard stories about this forest. The locals called it the Silent Ground. They said creatures lived here that loved the night, creatures with wings large enough to cover the moon. But the human thought it was just fear and legend, at least until tonight. He stopped. There was movement between the trees. A small figure stumbled out from the shadows. It was not a beast, not a hunter, but a girl. She was not human. Her skin was pale silver, almost glowing under the moonlight. Her eyes were too large for her face, shining with a soft green light. Her clothes were torn, and she looked weak, almost ready to fall. She looked at him with desperate fear and hope. Then in a broken voice she cried out, "Please, human, help me!" The man froze. The sound of her voice cut the silence like a blade. He had heard alien languages before, but this girl spoke his tongue, broken yet clear. He looked around. His instincts told him this could be a trap. Why would a strange girl appear here in the darkest forest all alone? The shadows above the trees seemed alive. Something was watching. The girl stepped closer, trembling. My mom is trapped in the Sky Hunter's nest." The man frowned. He had heard that name before. Sky Hunters. Not legend, but real. Winged beasts larger than any bird, with eyes like fire and claws sharp enough to cut stone. They ruled the cliffs and no one went near their nests. Entire villages stayed away. "Why me?" he asked, his voice low. "Because..." The girl's eyes filled with tears. "No one else will help. Everyone is afraid. They said she is lost. They said the Sky Hunters cannot be fought. But you are human. You fight things others will not. Please." Her voice shook, but her words carried strange faith. She had chosen him, a stranger, because she believed humans could do the impossible. The man felt his chest tighten. Part of him wanted to turn away. Helping her meant danger, maybe death. But another part, a deeper part, refused to ignore that desperate cry. Before he could answer, the night split with a terrible sound. A screech. It was so loud the trees seemed to shake. The human looked up, and his blood turned cold. High above, between the stars and the moon, shadows moved. Enormous wings spread across the sky. Their shapes were dark against the pale clouds, circling, watching. The girl clutched his arm. They know I am here." He pulled her behind a tree. A huge object fell from above with a heavy crash. Dust and dirt rose into the air. When it cleared, he saw it was a bone. No, not one bone. Many, all tied together with dried vines, dropped from the sky like a warning. The girl whispered, her voice shaking. "That is what they do. They throw the remains of the ones they eat. They are telling us to go back. But I cannot go back without her. I cannot leave my mom." The man's eyes stayed locked on the sky. Shapes moved across the moonlight. 3, maybe 4. Giant beasts circling slowly. Their wings beat the air, a rhythm of death. His mind raced. This was no simple mission. If he helped the girl, he would face those things. If he refused, he would walk away, and always remember the cry of a child he left behind. The girl looked at him, eyes wide and wet with tears. Her small hands shook as they held onto his sleeve. She was weak, terrified, but her spirit refused to break. "Please," she begged again, her voice almost a whisper. "You are my only hope." The human's heart pounded. For a long moment he said nothing. The forest seemed to lean closer, waiting for his choice. Then another sound ripped through the night. A loud crack, like branches breaking. He turned, his head, and froze. From the darkness of the treetops, a massive feather floated down. It was longer than his arm, black as shadow, and still wet with fresh blood. The human realized something terrible. The sky hunters were not only watching, they were hunting. The girl gasped. Her grip on him tightened. "Run," she whispered. But the man knew there was no running. The sky hunters had already found them. Above, the red glow of eyes pierced through the dark. One of the beasts was descending, slow and certain, wings stretched wide like a storm about to fall. The human drew his weapon. His breath came heavy. His mind screamed to escape, but his heart stood still. He looked once more at the alien girl. Her face was pale, her hope shining through her fear. She had begged for help. Now the choice was his. The forest shook as the sky hunter screeched again, shaking the very ground. And in that moment the human knew. The real story had just begun. The forbidden sky. The human stood frozen, weapon ready as the great shadow passed above the trees. The sky hunter's screech still echoed through the forest. The alien girl held tightly to his sleeve, her small frame shaking. Then, as suddenly as it came, the giant shape vanished back into the clouds. Silence fell again, but it was not peace. It was the silence of a predator waiting for its prey to move. The human exhaled slowly, his eyes still searching the sky. He turned to the girl. "We cannot stay here," he said firmly. She nodded quickly, tears on her face. They moved deeper into the forest. The girl walked beside him, stumbling often, but she refused to stop. She kept looking up at the sky, as if afraid her mother's voice might be lost if she did not listen. After a long stretch, the human spoke. "Tell me about this nest. Tell me what I am walking into." The girl's lips trembled. "The sky hunters live high in the cliffs, the mountains to the east. Their nest is not a single place. It is many caves hanging in the air. My people call it the forbidden sky. No one goes there." The human frowned. "Why forbidden?" "Because no one who enters ever returns," she whispered. "Even the bravest warriors. My mother was different. She was strong. She fought them to protect our village. That is why they took her alive. She is still breathing. I can feel it." Her words were filled with faith, but also with something heavier, fear of being wrong. The human studied her. She was so young, so fragile, yet she carried hope like a flame in the wind. And she was asking him to carry it too. The forest grew darker as they pressed on. The trees twisted into strange shapes, branches hanging low like claws. The air was thick, hard to breathe. Somewhere far above, wings beat the sky. The girl broke the silence. "I begged my people to help me. They all refused. They said the nest is cursed. They said even if my mother still lives, it is better to let her go." Her voice cracked. "But I could not. She is my only family. I ran away. I searched for days, and then I found you." The human's jaw tightened. Why trust a stranger? Why trust a human? She lifted her glowing green eyes to him. "Because humans are different. I heard stories. You fight things no one else dares. You change what cannot be changed. Even the stars fear your kind." The man felt uneasy at her words. He did not see himself as a hero. He was only a survivor, someone who had seen too much. Yet here was a child, placing all her hope on him. The path opened at last. Ahead the trees thinned, and the world stretched wide. The forest ended at a cliff edge, sharp and jagged. Beyond it rose the mountains, tall, black, and cruel. There, peaks cut into the clouds like knives. The girl pointed with a trembling hand. There, the forbidden sky. The human stepped closer, peering across the gulf. The mountains seemed alive, their sides filled with strange shapes. Holes like giant windows carved into the rock. From each hole something hung, woven nests of bone and vine swaying in the wind. They looked like cages. He felt a chill. Some of those cages held shapes. Too far to see clearly, but the truth was clear enough. Those were not empty. The girl whispered, "That is where they keep her. That is where the sky hunters feed." The wind shifted, carrying with it a foul smell. Rot mixed with iron. Blood. The human's eyes narrowed. This was worse than he thought. Climbing those cliffs will kill us, he said flatly. Yes, the girl agreed, but not climbing will kill her. He looked at her again. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with stubborn light. She would not leave even if it meant her death. The human sighed. His instincts screamed to turn back, but the desperate cry of the girl still echoed in his ears. He checked his weapon. Then we climb. The girl gasped in relief, her eyes filling with tears again. But before she could speak, the ground shook. The human looked down. A huge feather lay at his feet, black, sharp, and fresh. It had fallen without sound. That meant only one thing. They were already being watched. The girl whispered, "They know we are coming." The human scanned the sky. Above the cliffs, shadows moved slowly, wings stretching across the moonlight. The sky hunters circled their domain, lords of the forbidden sky. The human's hand tightened around his weapon. His heart pounded, but his voice was steady. Then let them watch. He stepped toward the cliff, ready to begin the deadly climb. Behind him, the girl followed, clutching the torn edge of her cloak. Above them, the screech of a sky hunter split, the night shaking the mountains themselves. The journey into the forbidden sky had begun. The nest of bones. The human's hands gripped the cold rock. The cliff stretched above him like a wall to the heavens. Every pull, every step, sent loose stones tumbling into the darkness below. The alien girl climbed just behind him, her small fingers shaking but never letting go. The mountain was cruel. The wind howled like a beast, slamming against them, trying to throw them off. The human's muscles burned, but he kept moving. He could hear the girl's short breaths, uneven yet determined. She was weaker than him, yet her will to climb burned stronger. Far above, the black holes of the sky hunter's caves stared down like empty eyes. The nests swayed in the storm. Each one was made of bone, vine, and strange metal scraps stolen from villages. They hung like giant cages in the air. The human paused on a ledge and looked down. The forest below was a dark sea. If they fell, there would be no saving them. He turned his eyes upward again. The nest seemed closer now, and he noticed something that froze his heart. Bones. The cliff was decorated with them. Skulls of alien creatures, human helmets, rib cages, all pressed into the stone, as if the mountain itself had been fed with endless lives. Some bones were broken, some sharpened into spikes, warnings to all who dared climb. The girl's voice broke the silence. This is why no one comes here. The sky hunters leave their trophies. They want us to see. They want us to fear. He too, human clenched his jaw. Fear was crawling up his spine, but he forced it down. He would not show it to her. They climbed higher, the air growing colder. A strange sound floated down from above, a rattling, a soft clinking, like chains moving in the wind. The human looked up and saw cages swinging, creaking against the rock. Inside some cages, bodies dangled, dry, lifeless husks. But others moved. Shadows shifted inside the bone prisons. Weak voices whispered. The human's stomach turned. These were not only graves, some of them were still alive. The girl gasped, her green eyes wide. Others, they are still there. Her words were filled with both hope and horror. If others were alive, then her mother truly could be too. The human forced himself to keep climbing. His fingers bled from sharp rock, but he did not stop. Step by step, they rose toward the nest of bones. At last, they reached a narrow ledge that curved along the cliff face. The nests loomed close now, swaying in the wind. The human could see them clearly, cages woven of bone and vine, dripping with blood. Some cages were broken, torn apart by claws. Others remained sealed, filled with prisoners who barely moved. The human and the girl crept forward, hearts pounding. The ledge groaned under their weight. The girl pressed close to him and whispered, "She is here." I can feel her. My mother is here. Her words gave him strength, but also dread. If her mother was here, it meant they were already deep in enemy territory. A sudden sound froze them, a low, rumbling hiss. The human's eyes darted to a dark corner of the cliff. Something moved within a hollow space. At first it looked like part of the rock, but then it shifted. A massive shape uncurled itself. The human's blood ran cold. An eye opened. Red. Burning. It was not a cage. It was not rock. It was a sky hunter, resting. The beast unfolded its wings, scraping the stone with claws longer than swords. Its feathers were black, glistening with the shine of blood. Its beak snapped open, releasing a growl that shook the cliff. The girl's face went pale. She clutched the human's arm. It's guarding them, guarding the prisoners. The human raised his weapon slowly, his breath tight. He had hoped to avoid them until they reached the nest, but fate had other plans. The sky hunter stepped forward, its wings spreading wider, blocking the ledge. It was huge, bigger than any creature he had ever seen. Its talons scraped sparks against the stone. The girl whispered, "If it calls the others, we are finished." The beast's throat rumbled, preparing to screech. The human knew he had one chance. If the sky hunter cried out, the whole nest would awaken. They would be torn apart before reaching her mother. He grabbed a loose stone and hurled it into the darkness of the opposite cliff. The sound cracked like thunder. The beast's head snapped toward the noise. For a single breath, its attention wavered. "Now!" the human hissed, pulling the girl. They ran along the ledge, hearts racing, as the giant bird snapped back toward them with a roar. The ledge shook as the sky hunter launched after them, wings tearing through the wind. Ahead, a cage swung low, its vines torn open. The human grabbed the girl and leapt. They landed inside, the cage groaning but holding their weight. The sky hunter's claws smashed into the stone where they had been moments before. The beast screeched, a sound so sharp it made the girl cover her ears. The other nests began to stir. Shadows shifted, wings unfolded. The human's heart sank. The sky hunters were waking. He held the girl close as the cage swung wildly high above the ground. The bones creaked, threatening to break. Below them, the forest waited like an open grave. Above them, wings filled the sky, and in the middle of it all, the girl whispered, her voice trembling but full of fire. "She is here. I can hear her voice. My mother is calling." The human tightened his grip, his eyes narrowing against the storm. The nest of bones was alive, and it wanted them dead. The hunter strikes. The cage swung wildly, carried by the strong mountain winds. The human held the alien girl tightly against him, his hand gripping the sharp bone bars to steady them. Below them stretched the endless drop of the forest. Above them, shadows moved like storms given wings. The sky hunter that had awakened still prowled the ledge, its red eyes glowing in the dark. It spread its wings, testing the air, preparing to leap. But the screech it released had already done its work. The mountain was no longer silent. From every hollow cave, new shapes stirred. The human heard the terrible beating of wings, the cracking of claws against stone, the hiss of sharpened beaks grinding together. The nest was alive, and it was waking for them. The girl buried her face in his chest. "They are coming," she whispered. The human's eyes scanned the cliff. Escape was almost impossible. The ledge was blocked. The cage they clung to hung by thick vines of bone and sinew, creaking with every gust of wind. His only choice was forward, into the nest itself. The sky hunter on the ledge crouched low, its muscles coiled like a spring. Its talons dug deep into the stone. With one explosive leap, it launched toward the cage. The human shoved the girl, flat, and rolled aside just as the massive claw tore through the cage bars. Bones splintered, shards flying like knives. The whole cage rocked violently, swinging out into the open air. The human's heart pounded. One more hit like that, and the cage would snap. They would fall to their deaths before the beasts even touched them. He reached into his pack and pulled free a flare stick, a small human tool meant for signaling. He snapped it, and red fire burst alive in his hand, burning bright against the night. The sky hunter screeched in rage, recoiling from the sudden light. Its red eyes narrowed, furious. The girl gasped at the fire. "They fear it." The human bared his teeth. "Then we give them reason." He hurled the flare straight into the beast's face. The creature shrieked, wings thrashing, its massive body smashing against the cliffside as it tried to escape the burning glow. Rocks crumbled, tumbling down into the endless forest below. But the victory was short. From deeper within the nest, more sky hunters emerged. Their screeches echoed like thunder. 2, then 3, then 5 shadows filled the air, circling like vultures. The girl's voice shook. "We cannot fight them all." The human's eyes hardened. "We don't fight them all. We move." He scanned the cliff. Just above them, a cave mouth gaped open, black and wide. It was dangerous, but it was shelter. "Hold on," he ordered. The girl clung to him tightly. With one arm, he climbed the broken side of the cage, balancing against the swinging motion. The sky hunters circled, screeching, waiting for the right moment to strike. The human leapt, fingers barely catching the jagged stone edge of the cave. Pain tore through his hand as rock cut his skin, but he did not let go. He pulled himself and the girl inside, rolling onto the cold floor of the cave. For a moment, there was silence again. But the silence was worse. Inside the cave, the air was heavy, filled with the smell of rot and feathers. Strange markings covered the walls, symbols scratched by claws, warnings left long before. Piles of bones lay everywhere, some fresh, some so old they had turned to dust. The girl gagged, covering her mouth. This is where they feed." The human scanned the shadows. Something about this place felt wrong. Too still, too quiet, even with the monsters outside. He raised his weapon, every sense sharp. Then he heard it, a growl. It was deep, low, and close. From the far end of the cave, 2 red eyes glowed in the dark. The human stepped back, pushing the girl behind him. The creature stepped forward, another sky hunter, smaller than the one outside, but no less deadly. Its wings were folded tight, but its talons scraped the ground with each step. The girl gasped. "It's guarding them, the prisoners." The human's eyes flicked behind the beast and froze. There, half hidden in the shadows, were cages. Not nests, but prisons, sealed with bone and vine. Shapes moved inside, weak and broken. Whispers rose, faint cries for help, and one voice was clearer than the rest. Faint but strong. A woman's voice. The girl's breath caught in her throat. "Mother." The human's chest tightened. She was here. The girl had been right, but between them and her stood the beast. The sky hunter hissed, its beak snapping, its claws digging deep into the rock. It lowered its head, ready to strike. The human braced himself, weapon steady, fire in his eyes. The girl held her breath, her small hands trembling. And then the beast lunged, faster than lightning, wings exploding, open to fill the cave with black shadow. The battle for the prisoners had begun. Prison of the Queen. The cave shook with the force of the sky hunter's lunge. The human rolled sideways, dragging the alien girl with him. The beast's talons smashed into the stone where they had been standing, sending cracks racing through. "The ground!" The girl screamed, her voice echoing through the prison chamber. The human raised his weapon and fired. The flash of fire burst in the dark cave, striking the beast's wing. The sky hunter shrieked in rage, stumbling back. Its feathers smoked, the smell of burning filling the air. The human pulled the girl to her feet. "Move!" They ran deeper, into the cave, past piles of bones and broken cages. The cries of the prisoners grew louder. Faint voices begged in different tongues, weak, hopeless, but alive. The human's eyes darted around, searching, until one sound rose above the rest. "Woman's voice, child?" The girl froze, her green eyes widening. "Mother!" She rushed toward the sound, tears spilling from her face. The human followed, keeping his weapon ready, his ears sharp for the beast's return. At the far end of the cave, chained to the wall with vines made of bone and strange black metal, was a woman. Her silver skin glowed faintly, though her body was weak and scarred. Her eyes, green like her daughter's, shone bright even in the darkness. The girl fell to her knees before her. "Mother, I found you." The woman lifted a trembling hand, brushing her daughter's hair. You should not have come. It is too dangerous." The human scanned the bindings. They were not simple chains. They pulsed faintly, alive, as if grown from the cave itself. Whatever they were meant to hold even the strongest prisoner. He stepped forward. "We need to move. Now." Before, the ground shook. A deep, heavy rumble rolled through the cave. Dust rained from the ceiling. The girl's mother's face turned pale. "She is coming," the woman whispered. "The queen." The human froze. His stomach dropped. He had fought predators before. He had faced death before. But the way she said it, the queen, was not like a creature, it was like a curse. The girl looked at her mother in horror. "The queen? She's real?" The mother nodded weakly. "She rules them all. She hunts, she commands, she feeds. No one escapes her nest. That is why they took me alive. I am to be her feast." The human's jaw tightened. He raised his weapon to cut the chains, but the metal vines resisted. His blade sparked and snapped against them. The ground shook again. This time it was closer. Louder. The prisoners in the other cages whimpered, crying out in fear. Some clawed at their cages, desperate to escape. Then the cave filled with shadow. From the largest opening above, wings unfolded, vast, black, endless. The queen entered. She was twice the size of the others, her feathers dark as midnight but glowing faintly with strange light. Her eyes burned like molten fire, and her beak was jagged, cracked like stone from countless battles. She landed with a crash shaking the cavern. Bones shattered under her talons. The girl clung to her mother, trembling. The human raised his weapon, but his hand shook slightly. The beast was enormous, beyond anything he had imagined. The queen stretched her wings wide, filling the chamber. Her screech blasted through the cave, so powerful it rattled the bones of the dead. The girl's mother cried out, "Run, take her and run!" But the girl refused. "No, I will not leave you." The queen tilted her massive head, her eyes narrowing on the human and the girl. She stepped closer, each movement shaking the ground. Her breath smelled of rot and blood, washing over them like poison. The human's mind raced. His weapon would not be enough. He needed something more. He grabbed the flare stick at his belt, his last one. He snapped it, the red fire bursting to life. He waved it high, the light cutting through the darkness. The queen hissed, flinching slightly, but then she did something the others had not. She lowered her head toward the flame, her eyes burning brighter. She was not afraid. She was curious. Then she opened her beak and swallowed the fire whole. The cave plunged back into darkness. The girl screamed. The human staggered back, his heart thundering. The queen roared, shaking the cavern walls. She had eaten the fire, and it had only made her stronger. The girl's mother cried out again. "You cannot fight her, she is death itself." But the human stepped forward, weapon raised, his voice was steady, cold. "Death bleeds, everything does." The queen shrieked in fury and struck, her talons slamming into the ground where he stood. The cave split with the force, rocks falling from above. The prisoners screamed, the girl clutched her mother, and the human rolled aside, barely escaping. He looked back at the alien girl, her eyes filled with tears and fear. "Stay with her," he shouted. He turned back to the queen, his weapon glowing faintly in the shadows. His breath was heavy, his muscles tense. This was no longer a fight for survival. This was a fight for freedom. The queen screeched again, her wings unfolding like a storm about to swallow the world. The human charged. Battle above the sky. The human's boots pounded against the cave floor as he charged. The queen's roar answered, shaking the mountain like thunder. Her wings spread wide, smashing cages against the walls, spilling bones and dust into the air. The alien girl screamed, clinging to her mother as the ground cracked beneath them. Prisoners wailed, some reaching through their cages, begging for help, others praying in voices too weak to rise above the chaos. The queen's talons swept down, each one as long as a sword. The human dove, rolling across the stones, feeling. The air split behind him as claws ripped the ground apart. Shards of rock cut his arm, but he forced himself to rise. He fired his weapon. The shot slammed into the queen's wing joint, bursting feathers into the air. The queen shrieked, stumbling for half a breath, but it only enraged her. She lunged again, snapping her beak, the sound like steel breaking. The human barely dodged, his back slamming into a broken cage. Pain shot through him. The cage rattled, and a thin, trembling hand reached out from inside. "Save us," a prisoner whispered. The human gritted his teeth. He had no time. If he didn't survive, no one would be saved. The queen's head swung toward the girl and her mother. The glow of her eyes locked on them. She stepped forward, her massive form blocking all light. "No!" the girl cried. She threw herself over her mother. The human's chest tightened. He sprinted forward, leaping onto a rock outcrop. He fired again and again, each blast lighting the dark cave for an instant. The queen screeched, turning her attention back to him. That was the only thing keeping the girl alive. But the cave could not hold the battle for long. The queen beat her wings once, and the force of the wind tore through the chamber, ripping cages from their vines, sending bones crashing down. The roof split, light from the storm outside pouring in. The queen leapt into the air, smashing through the cave roof. Rocks tumbled in a deadly rain. The human grabbed the girl and pulled her close as the ceiling collapsed. The girl's mother screamed, her chains rattling, but the stones fell too fast. When the dust cleared, the queen was gone. She had burst free into the storm above. The human coughed, blood on his lips. He looked at the girl. "Stay with her, don't move, or—" Girl's eyes widened. "What are you—" But he was already climbing the broken wall, chasing the queen into the sky. The storm howled outside. Rain slashed sideways. Lightning split the heavens. Thunder roared across the peaks. And in the middle of it all, the queen flew. Her wings stretched wider than ships, her body a shadow against the storm. The human pulled himself onto the cliff's edge, soaked by the rain. The queen circled above, her eyes glowing like fire through the dark clouds. She had not fled. She was waiting for him. The human's breath came hard, his weapon heavy in his hands. He had no more flares, no more tricks. Only courage and iron will. The queen dove. The mountain shook as she streaked toward him, faster than he could think. At the last instant, he leapt aside. Her talons ripped into the stone, carving a crater where he had stood. Sparks flew, the smell of burnt rock filling the air. He fired again. The shot struck her neck, but the queen twisted, her wings batting him off his feet. He flew backward, slamming into the cliff wall, his body screaming with pain. She circled again, rising into the storm clouds. Lightning lit her massive form, painting her like a demon carved from the night. The human struggled to his feet. His vision swam, but he would not stop. He thought of the girl's desperate eyes, of the mother chained in darkness. He thought of all the bones in the nests, of all who had been left behind. "This ends now," he whispered. The queen shrieked, diving once more. The human braced himself. At the last second, instead of dodging, he ran straight toward her. The beast roared. In triumph, her talons opened to crush him, but the human jumped, grabbing onto her leg as her claws slammed into the ground. Pain ripped through his arms as he held on, and then he was lifted. The queen soared into the storm, carrying him into the sky. The wind screamed. Rain slashed against his face. The world below shrank into a blur of forest and stone. The human clung to the queen's scaled leg, his grip slipping against the wet surface. The air grew colder, sharper, each breath a knife in his chest. The queen twisted, trying to shake him off. She roared, a sound that split the storm. The human dragged himself higher, climbing her body like a living mountain. She snapped at him with her beak, her breath hot and foul, but he pressed forward, driving his blade into her flesh. Black blood sprayed across the rain. The queen shrieked in fury, twisting in midair. They spun together, locked in battle, lightning flashing all around them. The human pulled his blade free and stabbed again, higher, closer to her neck. She bucked and twisted, wings flapping wildly, sending them crashing through the clouds. Below, the girl screamed from the cave, watching in terror as the human fought her nightmare above the sky. The queen clawed at him, slashing his back, tearing flesh. Pain burned through him, but he held on, his blade glowing with blood. He reached her neck. With one final cry, he drove the weapon deep into her flesh, twisting it hard. The queen shrieked, her wings faltering. For the first time, she staggered in flight. Her body shook. Her scream was not victory, but pain. The storm swallowed them, both as they tumbled, falling, locked in a deadly embrace of human and monster. Freedom or doom. The storm roared as man and monster fell. The human clung to the queen's neck, his blade buried deep in her flesh. Her wings thrashed, tearing the sky apart, trying to steady her flight. But the wound bled black rivers into them, storm staining the clouds. The queen shrieked, a sound so powerful the mountains echoed. The human's ears rang, his vision blurred, but he held on. If he let go, he would be nothing but broken bones on the forest floor below. Lightning split the sky. For one instant, the world glowed white. The queen's body twisted, her wings faltering, her balance broken. They smashed through the clouds, plunging toward the jagged peaks. The human yanked his blade free and struck again. This time he drove it deeper, right into the queen's throat. Her scream turned into a choking roar, her wings collapsing inward. The air tore at them both. The forest below raced closer. The queen made one last desperate move. She twisted in midair and flung herself against the mountainside. The human was slammed hard into stone, his grip breaking. His blade tore free. He was falling. The queen's broken body spiraled beside him, her wings flapping weakly, her blood leaving a trail through the storm. The human's mind screamed, but his body moved on instinct. He grabbed at anything. Branches, stone, vines. At the last moment, his hand caught the edge of a broken ledge. His body slammed into the cliff, his shoulders screaming with pain. But he held on. The queen was not so lucky. She crashed into the mountainside with a thunderous boom. Rocks split, dust and fire rising. Her massive body slid down, smashing trees until it lay still in the valley below. Her wings twitched once, then folded. Silence fell. The queen of the sky hunters was dead. The human dragged himself onto the ledge, coughing blood. His body was torn and bruised, but he was alive. He looked back toward the prison cave. The girl stood at the broken edge, rain soaking her silver hair. Her eyes glowed bright even through the storm. When she saw him, she cried out, "You lived." He staggered toward her, every step heavy. She rushed to him, her small hands trembling as she helped him stand. Tears streamed down her face. I thought they took you." The human managed a faint smile. "Not today." Behind her, the prisoners still cried in their cages, and the girl's mother was still bound to the wall. The human forced his aching body forward. He examined the black metal vines again. They pulsed faintly, alive, but with the queen dead, their strength had weakened. He raised his blade, slamming it against the vines again and again. At last, with a sharp crack, the bindings broke. The girl's mother stumbled forward, falling into her daughter's arms. The two clung to each other, sobbing in relief. The mother's eyes, weak but grateful, turned to the human. "You saved us, even when no one else would." The human shook his head. "No, your daughter saved you. Her hope carried us here." The girl smiled through her tears. For the first time, her face was not only desperate, it was full of light. But their moment of peace was short. A sound rose from outside the cave, a screech. The human's blood turned cold. He looked out into the storm. The queen was dead, but the others. The sky hunters circled above the valley, dozens of them. Their cries were not mournful. They were furious. The girl clutched her mother tightly. They will not stop. Without their queen, they are wild. The humans stared at the storm. He had killed their leader, but now he had awakened something else. Rage. He turned back to the prisoners. "We free them all. Then we move. Tonight. The mother nodded weakly. If we can reach the lowlands, the hunters will not follow. They fear the rivers. The human began breaking cages, pulling weak bodies out one by one. Some were too frail to stand. Others wept at the sight of freedom. The girl and her mother helped, their strength small but steady. When at last the last prisoner was freed, the human looked once more at the storm. The sky hunters still circled, their eyes glowing red in the clouds. He knew this was not the end. The girl stood beside him, her hand slipping into his. "You gave me back my mother. You gave us all hope." The human said nothing, only tightened his grip. Far below, the queen's body lay still. But in the storm above, feathers fell, long, black, glowing faintly with strange light. One feather drifted down, landing at the human's feet. He picked it up, feeling a strange heat inside it. The queen was dead. But something about this feather whispered danger. The girl's voice broke the silence. "This fight is only the beginning, isn't it?" The human looked into the storm, his jaw set. "Yes," he said. "But humanity doesn't run." The sky hunters shrieked again, their cries rolling like thunder across the forbidden sky. The human stood tall, bloodied and broken, but unbroken in spirit. He had faced death and won. Now the real war was coming, and he would be ready.